and very warm welcome to Raflims. This is Swarook Hussain. In this hands-on video tutorial, we will learn how we can start working on Koha 22.11 after the installation. Koha 22.11 is slightly upgraded as compared to other versions of Koha. So now let's start with this video. Here I have installed Koha on Ubuntu 22.04 and let me open my localhost. And the staff interface is installed on 8001 port. Remember, you have to log in with your super librarian credential. Koha_library or whatever the instance you have created is your Koha master password. So, and this master login ID and password works once only. And after that, at the time of onboarding tools, you have to create your super librarian credential. If by any chance you missed or you forgot the super librarian credential, so you can have the new super librarian credential from the terminal, and there's a complete video available on my channel, so you can have that video, so you can create a new super librarian credential. Or if by any chance you have created the super librarian credential similar to your Koha master password, so you can repeat the web installer process. So this is actually, there you need to provide one URL and then you can repeat web installer process. So I will leave the URL in the description of this video. So now let's start this video. Here I am logging with my super librarian, and as you can see, this is the Koha 22.11 staff interface, and all the modules are available, and this version is quite green. So from beginning or from the very first time, you have to open the Koha administration. And now we are working on the Koha basic administration, and then I will try to cover all these Koha administration in this video, or maybe in 2 parts, 2 or 3 parts. So now let's start with this video. So for the very first time, you have to configure, you have to define your library. Either you have one library, either you have 2 libraries, 3 libraries, or a number of libraries. So you can configure a number of libraries with Koha, and you can create a union catalog with Koha library system. New library, we have already one library we have created at the time of web installer tool, onboarding tools. So now we are going to create another library. For example, in my university, there are number of departments, there are number of institutions, so I can create faculty of arts library. I hope you can listen me. Let me move my mic here. Okay. And the address, you need to provide your address. But the red lines, you can see the red things, they are mandatory. Let me zoom here. This is for example only. And you can provide email, you can provide phone number, reply to the email address, or written path, SMTP server. You have to configure SMTP server for notification, and there's a video available on my channel how you actually configure SMTP. URL, IP of your OPAC, MARC organization code. If your library register with Library of Congress, so you can provide the MARC organization code, unless you can use the default MARC of organization code, or even you can provide your library code as well. For example, Faculty of Arts library, but this is not right somehow. So you have to register with Library of Congress. This way we have created one library, and you can create number of library. And if let's suppose you want to create separate instance for a separate university within this server, you can create the separate instances with completely entirely different staff interface. Those are not connected each other, but they work on the same system. Okay. And the video available on my channel, how you can create multiple instances on one server of Koha. Okay. After the library, in basic parameters, we have library groups. Library group is something hierarchical group where you can limit your library in a pool. So you can limit patterns data accessed by group, used for OPAC search group, used for staff search group, is local hold. So you can have all of them, and then you can provide the name. If your university working under any body, so you can provide the body name here. And there you can add subgroup if there's some subgroup, or you can add library here. So my both libraries are under this group. Okay. And then item type, the most important thing on Koha administration is item type after the library. Okay, so there you can see by default we have these items. Those we have import at the time of web installer tools, web installer of Koha. So you can remove any of them, or you can add a new one. For example, we have books, continuous resources, map, mixed material, music. And I just want to add one new item, that is ebook, and we can actually catalog ebooks in Koha as well. So I would say ebook. Remember the code, we cannot change the code here, but the description we can change. I use bridge, ebook, not for loan, and you can provide some rental charges, but there's no rental charges for ebook. Default replacement cost. When we actually process some print item, then we can provide the processing fees, default replacement cost, check-in message. Zip media type. So we have created ebook, and let me create another item. For example, I want to create the fiction item, fiction ebooks under the books. And this item is actually the sub division or the sub portion of this book. So now we are, say, fiction book. I use this. Now you can provide rental charges and rupees, or the daily rental charges, you will say hourly. Default replacement cost would be 100, processing fees would be 100, and you can activate the alerts. There's some summary if you would like to write. Zip media type, but let it okay. Okay, so we have created one item type and one sub item type that is under the books. Okay, authorized values after the item types, they are quite important, and they are actually some predefined codes or the description which helps you in processing and operations of Koha. For example, at the time of cataloging, you need to provide some collection, some specific collection, some donation. So we can add some collection code here. For example, we have fiction, we have non-fiction, reference. They're by default. You can modify them or you can delete them. And if you need any new collection code, so you can create new collection code from here. The authorized value would be, for example, nation, if I set, or any uh, specific collection. Donation by and you can add some picture, but I think without picture this works well. So we have add FC, that is donation by Paro. So we are going to specify this collection, and in authorization values we have number of values, those we can define pre. Damage, see we have only one for damage, and we can add like missing as well. We can change this to missing, and we can use this value at the time of cataloging. Like if we need to provide a status for this, we can. And we have also lost in this authorized values, departments. Next, there you can see language, LOC is actually shelving location. For example, lost, and there you can see number of lost available, like lost, if you add code 2 you will see lost overdue, and code 3 lost and paid for, lost 4 is for missing, already available here. So you can provide multiple codes at the time of cataloging, and you can change the status, not the cataloging, but if you want to change the status of any material, so you can provide the code. Okay, we'll show you how actually you provide the code at the time of cataloging. Now this is just to provide you basic information. And authorized values here again, for example, LOC is for shelving location. There you can see multiple shelving location. If for example your library is also providing shelving location, including the call number, so you can provide the shelving location. For example, shelf number 1 or A or B or C, or new arrival shelf. There are some different shelf mentioned, for example, audiovisual, art, children areas, display, fiction, journalistic, processing center, actually the library technical area, and the reference section, staff office. So you can provide different shelving location. You need to remember the code authorized values. So at the time of processing, at the time of cataloging, you need to provide. And there in OPAC, so you can, if you want to activate any of them in OPAC, so you need to add it, and you need to provide the same value here. Let us create one shelving location, that is new arrival, for example. New arrival. For all libraries or any specific library. And you need to remember NA at the time of cataloging. Another shelving location, for example, you are working in a library where you have to provide the shelving location of along with the call number. So you can say shelf number A1.1. This could be the rag. I'm just writing like to clarify some concept. Okay. And we actually provide shelving location in 952. I guess C. I don't know. Maybe C. We'll talk about this at the time of cataloging. Okay, now after this, in Koha administration, so we have talked about the basic parameters here: libraries, library groups, item type, and the authorized web. Welcome back. Let us continue with Koha administration. In the last video, we have covered the Koha basic parameters, and now we are going to work on Koha patterns and circulation. In patterns and circulation, we have to define patterns category for all types of patterns group. So here we have one group, that is library staff, and we have already defined one category for all library staff. And now, and this category we have defined at the time of web installer tool, and you can create new category for your uh, different types of patterns, for example students, teachers, or the staff member. So here we are going to create one category for teachers, for example T, and or you can say C codes like TEA, whatever you want to, like say teachers or faculty members. Enrollment period would be 24 months, or you can extend this to 48, 2 years, or 6 months, or 60 months, whatever you want to. So 24 means 1 year, sorry, 2 years. And the password expiration, in most of the libraries there's a policy that password would expire after 30 or 60 or 90 days. Age requirement would be 18 to 65, or you can extend this upper age limit. Enrollment fees, if you have policy to charge at the time of enrollment, this does not usually happen with the teachers, but for external member you can have some fees. Overdue notices, yes, we need to send overdue notices. Lost item in staff interface shown. Hold fees, so if you have some policy to hold fees, like patterns hold some items, so you will charge some fees. And the teacher would be adults. All libraries they can use, or they can use one specific library. Password reset in OPAC, so they allowed to reset password. Password change in OPAC, they also allowed to change password in OPAC. Maximum password length, minimum password length would be 8 character, or you can actually leave this blank. I would say 8 character. Required strong password depends on your policy. Block expire patterns, yes, block. Default privacy, yes, default privacy, we will go with default privacy. Never forever. Exclude from local hold priority, and this is the most important. You have to check all of them to send them auto notification when we actually configure SMTP server. And now save this. So we have created one category for teachers. The code would be TEA, and you have to remember the code at the time of batch upload. This is by default not responsive screen, so we have to suffer with this. Anyhow, this is out of the context. Okay, so we can create new category, another category for students. Suppose your school or your institution has class 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, or 2A, 2B, 2C, and similar, and so on. So for each type of the group, or each class, or each section, you have to define a category code. For example, class 1A, and there you have to define, you can say, you cannot change actually code, you can change the description. So class 1A, okay, 1A, or you can say student class 1A for 12 months. Usually kids not allowed on OPAC, so we'll go, or if you allow kids on OPAC, so you can see this. Age required 2 years to 6 years. Golden fees. You can send overdue notices to parent or guardians. Child. or you can skip for a child. But if you are, you can add the email address of the parents so they can receive the email of your child activity. This actually depends on your as per your policy, whatever the policy your library has, so or your institution, so you can. And then after creating a pattern category, we have circulation and find rules. So this is the most important, and you have to define the circulation and find rules. At the time of web installer, we actually worked with the all for all, but later on we have to define the circulation and find rules. This is out of the context, so anyhow. Now we are going to create one rule for teacher, and they can borrow books, including fiction books as well. Books all, and the checkout limit would be 4, or we can extend this 8. Once we can borrow 8 books at a time. Okay, and on site would be 8 as well. Loan period 30 days, for example, and days, this will work in days, not in hours. Fine amount, if you have policy to charge fine, so 10. The fine interval would be 1 day per day. End of interval is good. Fine grace period, you can provide some grace period, but I think overdue fine cap amount, I don't think so. Yes, renewal, they can issue one and renew one. Renewal period would be same, so leave it blank, or you can say 30 days again. Automatically renewed, no. Opac item level hold, on shelf hold allowed, no. So we have defined one rule for teacher, and when you define rule, when you complete this process for all your categories, you have to delete all for all. So we have delete this, and you can define rules for class 1A. Students, they can borrow books, 2 books at a time for 14 days. Fine amount would be and this way you have to define rules for all your patterns categories. So create patterns category first and then define rules. And the attribute types, let's leave this. Library transfer limit, I don't think so. Transport cost matrix, item circulation alert, this is some important, so we're not able to discuss all of them. Let me make them green, and then I'll show you what actually mean to say red. So you can create some alert. So when you actually check out the material which is not allowed, so it will alert you, like continuous resources, I mean periodicals. So by mistake, if you're going to check out the material which is not allowed, so it will show you some alert. Maps, music, all the reference material, or similar for checking. They are red, they are already red, so I make them green, and then I'll show you. When I click on this, it will make them red. So this way you can create some alert. It will alert you at the time of circulation. Check and check out. Cities and town, subsite pickup, patterns restriction. So there are some restriction like discharge, manual, overdue, suspension. You can create another restriction, but I don't think so. It's quite important. In patterns and circulation, the most important thing is pattern categories and the circulation and fine rules. So you have to be very conscious. You have to be very uh, keen. I mean, careful. In fact, at the time of creating circulation and fine rules or the pattern categories. After this, in administration, we have the next thing is accounting, debit type, the credit type. So you can define the debit type like some fee, or the credit type like you are providing something to your pattern, so you can create in debit and credit. So let me show you. You can see they are actually predefined, some like overdue fine, payout, rental fee, rent, daily rental fee. So you can see hold fee, credit has been, I mean, the number fee is already predefined, so I don't think we need to work on this. And similar for credit types. You can see refund, purchase, write off, payment, they all predefined, and I don't think we need to work on this. Okay, manage job is something you can see the job which are in process. For example, you upload a batch to import in Koha catalog, so there you can see the status of the batch. Welcome back. Let us continue the Koha administration, where we have already discussed the Koha basic parameters, I mean the administration basic parameters. We have talked about the patterns and circulation. We have also discussed the accounting and the jobs, and now we are going to continue the catalog, and the most important is the mark bibliographic framework, where you can create and manage bibliographic framework for your cataloging need. So let me show you, and also show you where actually you work on Koha mark bibliographic framework. We have these framework by default. At the time of web installer tool, we have import, and you can modify them, you can delete them, and this is one of the default framework. And then we have acquisition framework, AR for models, and the book framework, CDs, fast add framework. This is important, fast add framework, because in default framework and some all of the framework we have 9 tabs. In fast add framework we have only one tab, I mean one pager catalog. So I'll show you. See, here in cataloging, when you perform cataloging of new material, you have two choices. From Z3 9.50, we will discuss Z3 9.50 later on. But when you perform cataloging, you have to select some framework, either default framework, either book framework, or the fast add framework. Let's suppose you select the default framework, and there you can perform cataloging in 9 tabs. See, from 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. As compared to fast add framework, we have all important tags and the fields are on one page, and we can actually edit them, we can delete, or we can add some fields. See, we have 010 for Library of Congress number, 020 for ISBN, and ISSN, 050 for Library of Congress call number, 082 for DB number, 100 for author, and 254 for title area, 250 for edition, 260 is for imprint area, 300 physical description, 500 journal note area, and 942. I think we 500. Okay, so we need to add 650 for the topical terms or the subject headings, not available here. So I'll show you how you actually add. Here you will select this mark structure, Or if you want to change the name of fast add framework to some other name, so you can actually. Okay, there you can see the tags, available tags. So new tag, and the tag would be 650. Topical terms, we will say subject or subject headings. Repeatable. If you would like to mention important or mandatory, you can. First indicator, default value would be. Second indicator, default values. You can actually define the values and the authorized values as well, but leave them blank. Now you have create the tag, and in tag you have to define the subfield. The subfield code would be A, text for librarian, subject, and in back it will show subjects like this. Or you can say tag, repeatable, or you can mention important and manage in tab 0. Default value, opaque visibility, intranet visibility, editor, authorized values you can. Or let's suppose you are using, so here we have add one subfield, and you can add another subfield, for example, in subject, X. For librarians, we will say subject headings. Opaque, Pronet, editor. See what happened here. See, we have added here 650, and if you have one single subject, or you want to work with subject 1, subject 2, subject 3 subjects, so you can have that. Or if you are working with subject headings, so you can create some subject heading here, X for subject headings and A for subjects only. Okay, and this field can be repeat. You can clone this. For example, you have 3 subjects in cataloging, so you can provide 3 subjects or 3 subject headings. They're different actually. Okay, so we will talk in cataloging when we move to cataloging, but okay. In administration, we have this catalog, and in catalog, this most important thing is this one, and the classification configure. So you can actually classification. You can define your default classification. See, you can add your own classification as well, but okay. I think there's no need to change this, or there's no need to touch it. Okay. Okay, and then record matching rules. So you can define record matching rule. By default it's ISBN, so leave it. Record overlay rules. So okay, item search fields, Koha to mark mapping, bibliographic frame. I think they are not so important to configure. In fact, acquisition. Okay, after this, after catalog, we have acquisition parameters, and there you have to define currency, budgets, and funds. So you can actually. Okay, so you can see these are the countries we have import at the time of web installer tool. If you have not import any of the currency, so you can create new currency. We have US dollar here, and the currency is that is active is US dollar. So instead of US dollar, I can create local currency like Pak rupees. The rate would be 1. Symbol PK piece. ISO code PKR. Yes. Now active currency is Pak rupees. Pak rupee, in fact, I have added. You can change this, no problem. You cannot change this, okay? You have to bear this if you have make any mistake here, because the code you cannot change. You can delete this. Anyway, so in currency we have this, and budget, you can define the budget as well. New budget. Start from, for example, January to 2023 to December. You can say FA Faculty of Arts Library budget. The total amount and mark budget active. You can log this, but if you want to log some time, you can. This is now active, and there's no inactive budget. If you want to change this to inactive, so you can, and there you can add fund, or you can work on fund from here. Budget is actually the major part, and fund is actually the subdivision of your budget. We have already defined our budget here. Add fund. The fund code would be books, for example. Warning at 10% in amount. What would be 10% of all legs? 4,000. Or you can select any. Faculty of Arts Library, you can add user who will actually monitor, who will actually work on this budget. Right now, I'm only the patron here. It's processing. Or you can select from the name. Yes, you can add. Close this. There's only one person who can add. Or you can remove this for that particular library. Restrict access to none. We have created one portion for books. We can add some new portion for magazines or for journals or anything. So this way we have created a budget. We have defined one currency. We have created budget. We have created funds. Welcome back. Let us continue the Koha administration. Koha administration, we have additional parameters, and in additional parameters, we have number of things. Identity provider for external identity provider, for example, LDAP or single signage, and Z39.50 or SRU client we can configure here. SMTP server. Did you mean for this we have to work on the authority file, table setting, audio alerts? We can receive some audio alerts if during the operation of Koha. and you can share your usage statistics with the Koha community. You can share your content with Mana KB or additional file, add additional field. Okay, this is additional field, not additional file. Okay, identity provider, so there you can provide your identity, I mean external identity for single signage. Let us explore this. New, if your library or institution has policy for single signage, so you can provide code, only the alphanumeric description. You can select the protocols here, configure. You can read more about this. Add default, this is the default one. Add this default here, email or user ID or the card number, say user ID, say whatever the policy, I mean matching point, like card number for example, URL, domain, and the default library, default category, allow OPAC, allow staff, whatever you have to do. But it's really not important unless you have policy, your institution has policy for this. Okay. And then we have Z3 9.50 or SRU server client, so we can add multiple. By default, we have import some from the web installer tool like Library of Congress and National Library of France. So I'll show you where we actually need them. When we perform cataloging, we have two options, like either we fetch data from the Library of Congress or any other SRU or Z3 9 point client like this, or we can perform cataloging at your own, or you can upload batch or something. So we have three clients here, so we can add more clients in this. For that, we need to visit at the Koha homepage, and there you can see read Koha documents. So there we can find the Koha manual. It's 22.11 in English or your regional language. So we can say HTML. So you can read more about Koha in Koha administration, and there you can read more about the basic and the recommendation and the web installer as well, onboarding tools and some advanced configuration, global system preferences. Here we are going to discuss the administration. In administration, we are at additional parameters, and there you can see we have this index where we can have the targets for Z3 9.50 client. For example, I want to add one client here, find a target, and we have to fill this information. So I would say Z3 9.50 client, and we can also find by country, for example, Pakistan also there. That's other country, New Zealand, National Library of New Zealand, and you have to fill this information. Server name, for example, this is the server name. Here you can write the National Library of New Zealand, but I'll go with this. Host name, here's the host. Port, database, and these are some additional information, user ID, password. If there's some available here, so you can copy, unless you can skip. What syntax important actually? Unimark or Mark 21 or US Mark. See, here we have syntax US Mark, so we are right this. Timeout, bibliographic, attribute, rank, or so on. So save this now. So we have add this one. And when we perform cataloging, I think we need to refresh this. When you perform cataloging, you will also see, and you can import data from this, from Library of Congress, the ISBN number, ISSN number, title, author. So we will discuss this when we perform cataloging in some other videos. Now here we are at administration, and we have add one D39.50 client here, that is National Library of New Zealand. Okay, SMTP server, you can configure SMTP server here, but I would recommend to configure through the postfix, and then you can use it. Like the name would be the, I think if you configure Gmail, or you can provide the Gmail host here and the port here, SSL, the name of SSL here, username, password. But there's a complete video available on my channel about how you actually configure SMTP server and notifications, so that you can have that feed. Audio alert. So you can define different audios here. If you want to listen some different types of alerts, so you can but by default they will work with the default one. You can select, you can edit them and change the order. Okay, that's not so important. Additional field, I think it's not so important, so leave it. And thank you very much for watching. We have covered the Koha administration. We have talked about the basic parameters, patterns and circulation, accounting jobs, catalog, acquisition parameters, additional parameters. In some other video, we will also talk about the global system preferences, and we have discussed most important administration fields. Thank you very much for watching Reference. This is Farooq Hussain.